It's 3 o'clock. We'll call the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners to order for the full board meeting. The first item is the invocation, and I would like to do that today. So, Lord of wisdom, we pray that you will bless this meeting, help us have fun, yet productive discussions that will broaden our perspective. Help us to take the various ideas presented and think of ways to flesh them out. If we do disagree, let it be on the content and not personality conflicts or power plays. Help us to resolve any disputes gracefully, be creative problem solvers, and have great team spirit. Help us to find principles that we can all agree on and put these into action. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, next is Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Sear, we can do this in that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Sear?
Here.
Commissioner Hovey Wright?
Here.
Vice Chair Hughes?
Here.
Commissioner Laring?
Here.
Commissioner Nash?
Here.
Commissioner Pago? Here. Chair Skolnick?
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins?
Here.
9 present.
Okay, we have more here. The next item is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion, it's been supported. Are there any comments, corrections, questions? If not, we'll do a voice vote on that. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Opposed.
That's approved. Next is approval of the special full board meetings of January 13th, 2022. So
Support.
I have a motion that's been supported. Are there any corrections or comments on those minutes? If not, we'll do a voice vote on that too. All those in favor of the special full board minutes of January 13th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, those are approved. We now have time for public comment on an agenda item. Anyone who would like to make have any comments on something that's on the agenda today? Is there anyone? Yes, hang on, ma'am, just a minute. Is there anybody online? There is. Okay.
This and she's right here.
Sorry, I just got to double checking. There is the issue of the vaccine mandate for health workers on this agenda.
Yes.
Can I go now?
Yeah, what, did you fill that?
Yeah, I did. I have it here. I didn't have to date.
Okay, ma'am, if you could just pull an ask them while you're
I
speaking
can.
so we can hear. Thank you.
Favor of lifting the prohibition on following through with the requirement for healthcare workers to be vaccinated at Health West and any other facility that receives federal funding. I want to talk a little bit about the supremacy clause, which if you're not a U.S. history teacher, former U.S. history teacher like me, you might not know what that is right off the bat. But the supremacy clause says that the federal government, basically, if there is a conflict between the federal government and the state or local government, the federal government rules, okay? And there was a guy named John C. Calhoun back in the 1800s that was a senator that thought that they could pass something called the Nullification Act. It had to do with slavery, and they wanted to have slavery, and they didn't want the federal government involved with that. And basically that was overturned by the Supreme Court. So I would urge this body to do what is going to be necessary, and that is to rescind whatever policy you put in place to get rid of the vaccine mandate. This has to happen. We need this funding for our people. I really feel frustrated that there seems to be such a lack of concern. People are dying And in fact, Muskegon County has a higher percentage of its population that has died over both Kent and Ottawa counties because of our lack of mitigation. And so I would just like to encourage you to either rescind the policy or make an exception to the policy. And I did want to point out also, there's another thing that's been talked about, which is this something about a lesser magistrate, this form of government back in the 1500s in Germany that said if you didn't agree with the law, that you didn't have to follow the law. And so I would just say for those folks that want to follow that, maybe you could get a time machine and go back to the 1500s. You could live then, there were no vaccines, and people didn't live past about the age of 30. Thank you. Those are all my comments today.
Thank you, Ms. Beal. Next up is, I'm not sure to pronounce it, Tom Zimmer or Zimmer?
Zimmer.
Zimmer. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tom Zimmer from Whitehall, 902 South Cove. And I wanted to speak against the vaccine mandates. I went fishing this morning and I called my neighbor friend to see if he wanted to go. He and his wife both had COVID last week, even though they both had the vaccine and 2 boosters. And so anyway, I invited him to go anyway. The problem with the vaccines, one of the things that they never talk about is all the deaths and injuries as a direct result of the vaccines. This information is on the CDC's website. It's hard to find. They don't want you to find it, but it is there. There have been many people killed by it, many people injured by it permanently in a lot of cases. A friend of mine, of my wife's, developed the, I don't know what to call it, but the foot issues that are fairly common among us, where she can't walk normally anymore. You know, there's just been a lot of things that said. If anybody's a fan of Eric Clapton, for instance, you should look at his video and the damage that it did to him and his hands in particular. And that's all. There's, it should not be forced on people. You are going to injure some people if it is forced on people. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmer. Okay, next up is Mark Nienhaus.
Yeah, Mark Nienhaus on Warren Street in Whitehall. I'm also here to speak out against any kind of mandates. We don't need people controlling, other people controlling our lives. It's not our responsibility to protect other people from getting the flu. That's individual responsibility. And I spent 20 years on active duty, made multiple deployments. I probably had more needles stuck in my arms and vaccines than all you people combined. And I'm not going to be forced to get a vaccine again by anybody. So hope and pray that you guys will not institute any kind of a vaccine.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Kristen, are there
Michelle Hazekamp.
Michelle Hazekamp? I don't. You're
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I also want to express my opinion on the COVID vaccine mandates for Health West and all federal healthcare workers. I believe everyone should have the right to choose. This mandate is in violation of our rights protected by the U.S. Constitution, specifically Article 1, Section 1, and the Equal Protection Clause found in the 14th Amendment, Section 1. Also, Article 7 of the 1966 International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, as put forth by the Geneva Convention, states, no one shall be subjected without his free consent to medical or scientific experimentation. Furthermore, there's the Universal Declaration of Human Rights put forth by the United Nations states in Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, or home. Mandated vaccines are a direct interference with families by forcing medical treatment without consent. Article 25, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care. The health and well-being of a family is determined by the family. It is not subject to the interference of the government. And then, of course, there's the Nuremberg codes, which clearly state the voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. These vaccines are experimental in that this is new technology that has never been used on humans before until now, and without long-term studies, we don't know the long-term effects. The current VAERS data shows 21,745 COVID vaccine reported deaths to date. And with COVID cases surging among even the vaccinated, we must question the efficacy of the vaccines and boosters, not force them on people.
Your friend, your 2 minutes is up. Okay, thank you. Next up is Darrell Newell.
I'd like to speak against the vaccine mandate. There's been several other medications that are on the market and being denied to heal this problem. The mandates wouldn't be in place if they would allow ivermectin to go through, antifungal antibodies, hydrochloroquine. But instead, in order to push this through as a drug that is experimental, damaging people's lives, killing people, it's murder, it's genocide. Across this nation, this is genocide. You are killing people. And if you mandate that, she's right, that violates your Nuremberg Code. Every member in this body ought to be scared to death to turn over your rights to this government, because it's not their right to put in your body what you do not want in your body. They want to say my choice, my body for abortions. They're killing more people. How many people are we going to kill in this country until somebody stands up and says, quit killing people? How many? I don't know what else to tell you. She's right about the VAERS. Look at all the listings on that. CDC, all the deaths caused by this drug. And yet we're going to mandate people who are in charge of our health care. We need the healthcare workers. We don't need them dead. To me, all you're doing, that's attempted murder. You go after me with a needle and it's on. That's attempted murder. That's what that is. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Next is Nancy Steyer.
Thank you. My name is Nancy Steer, and I am very much in favor of having mandatory vaccine mandates. Like the gentleman said, stop killing people. And I can't think of a faster way to kill people than allow people that are not vaccinated to be taking care of people in a nursing home or staffing a doctor's office and breathing on them. And as we know, many people died in the nursing homes of this county at the start of this pandemic, when we didn't have vaccines, and there were many health workers that got it and they spread it to people who were totally incapable of protecting themselves because they were staying at the nursing homes. And they were like a captive audience for everyone else's germs. And I'm triple vaccinated. I believe that my rights are infringed by people that are refusing to get vaccinated. I got COVID at the New Year, and I firmly believe that if there were many more people that were not pretending that 800,000 people have already died from the coronavirus, I probably would not have caught it. I was triple vaccinated, so it was like a mild cold. But for people that are not vaccinated, you have a 20 times higher chance of dying. And I'm really tired of this stupidity about how we should not allow vaccination in this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, is there anybody else online?
Yep. Phone number ending in 323,
So it's a 323.
ending in 323.
Okay. Is that the way I put things? Okay,
This is Karen. Can you hear me?
yes, go ahead. Karen.
Okay. This is Karen Palmer. I wanted to answer the woman who just called in. I think her information is out of date and unfortunately incorrect. She got COVID despite the fact that she was vaccinated, but she feels that her rights were violated because other people are not vaccinated. That makes no sense. If it works, you wouldn't get it. It's not a vaccine. It's not by definition a vaccine. You nor the federal government as a county board should never have a say regarding vaccine choices. This is not a vaccine. It's an experimental drug. Your board promised to protect the rights of county employees, and the idea that you would consider changing that position and forcing your own to take part in that dangerous experiment is unconscionable. If you put a federal contract above those lives for money, you would bear the loss, in my opinion, and you could and should be held accountable. Our county employees should not have to make a choice between their career, their ability to help other people, their ability to feed their families, or taking an experimental drug which is known to cause very deadly injuries, including death, and sometimes temporarily anyway, just unfortunate things. But many of the people in some hospitals, most of the people who are hospitalized supposedly with COVID are the ones who are vaccinated. Single, double, triple. The unvaccinated are not as injured as often. They're by COVID. I had COVID. It wasn't even a cold. I was a little lethargic for a week. I'm not vaccinated. I have that choice. Our healthcare workers should also have that choice. That's all I have. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Kristen, is there anybody else?
Katie Kimball.
Katie, are you on there? You're showing up here. Just unmute and you've got.
Yes. Thank you. Katie Kimball from Byron Center in Kent County. And I'm just here also to express my opinion against vaccine mandates. I've read the clinical trials and they're fascinating. No, they'll put you to sleep. But the clinical trials on the vaccines only looked at personal symptoms and reducing the symptoms of the person taking the vaccine. They were never tested or never designed to reduce contraction of the disease or transmission. And so if we're talking about healthcare workers and protecting those in a nursing home or in the hospital, we would need to have a vaccine that was designed to and tested for ending transmission or ceasing transmission. And these vaccines don't do that. Therefore, any requirement to take the vaccine is definitely entering into personal choice, personal freedom, and personal medical decisions. It's not a community decision. These vaccines really aren't an us thing. They're a me thing. And God bless our country that we have the choice to accept a medical procedure that can help us in our personal fight against COVID. But unfortunately, the vaccines that we currently have are not designed to help prevent community spread. Therefore, it's not really even a community issue, and it's completely unethical to be requiring anyone, medical workers or not, to take a vaccine in the interest of protecting others. So if you have a lot of time, feel free to read the trial documents. Like I said, they'll put you to sleep, but it's very clear that not only are they not designed to reduce transmission, but there are definite side effects. And so to require someone to take that is taking way too big of a responsibility on your shoulders. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Kristen?
There is Jason Hall.
Jason Hall is online. Jason, I don't know if you have his.
Yep. Jason Hall, Moreland Township, Muskegon, Michigan. I hope everybody's been listening to those that have spoke. There's a lot of good information that's been given. The issue is Everyone tends to forget that you all have a sworn oath of office, not only to the federal government, but to our state constitution. The issue of it, though, is sometimes in the last 60 years, this board, not you necessarily, voted to allow the property owners to pay for the surety bond to ensure no rights were violated. That's why you're always going into closed session. Nobody tends to care because it's not coming out of your pocket. There are state statutes can have that rescinded and put back up to the people of the county to whether or not they want to keep paying for what you keep screwing up. This mandate, you want to go through with it? I suggest every one of these nurses or doctors, employees, wait until the very last day, get fired, and then come back and sue on the surety bond. That MMRMA, that joint agreement isn't going to stop it. Self-insurance ain't going to stop. This county doesn't have enough money to pay out. What are your rights worth? Mine are worth a lot more than that $1 million per incident. You're not going to violate my rights for $1 million. I'm not going to let you. I wouldn't let if I was them. What gives you the right to think that you can inject something into somebody's body that is not going to stop anything? This is an aerial product that everybody is going to get. And unfortunately, there are people that are going to be harmed. You have no rights to mandate that they lose their jobs just so that you can get federal money. It almost can be articulated into the RICO Act. You want to collaborate? Do a little history in what happened in France to those that collaborated with the Germans. Pray to God that never happens here. Pray to God that we have.
Well, your time is up. Thank you very much. Thanks for your comments. Kristen, anyone else?
And Derwin.
I'm sorry?
And Derwin.
Oh, Ann Derwin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ann Derwin, Muskegon. I'm calling because I am against the vaccine mandates. Everyone has a choice as to what they want in their body. And if they don't want an experimental drug, it should be their choice. And I refer to the Nuremberg Code as well. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely necessary. I could read the rest of it. There isn't time. You should take the time, please, to read it if you haven't. No one should be forced to have an injection they do not want. And that then they could lose their job if they don't have this injection. We also need to remember our healthcare workers. We're losing very, very good people that take care of us in the doctor's offices and in the hospitals. And they're quitting because they don't want this in their body. That should wake up a number of people saying, my goodness, if the medical people don't want it, wow, none of us should want it. So I'm just asking you to not mandate any vaccine for any reason at all. But this one is an experimental drug. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Kristen?
323.
Yeah, the 323 number didn't talk. It was a
Okay.
different person who spoke.
Someone is online with a number that ends in 323. There's no name. If your phone number ends in 323.
Good.
Hello? There you go.
Is that you? 323?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You got 2 minutes.
Name and live.
Your name and where you're from.
My name is Michelle Mixa. I live in Dalton Township, and I'm calling because I oppose the federal vaccine mandate. And I just wanted to quickly read from the Supreme Court document that was released last week, Thursday, regarding this mandate. It says, in November 2021, the Secretary announced that in order to receive Medicare and Medicaid funding, participating facilities must ensure that their staff, unless exempt for medical or religious reasons, are vaccinated against COVID-19. And I ask that the county, my first ask is, please do not implement this mandate. My second ask is, if we have to follow this mandate, which has not been ruled constitutional yet, the stay was held It has not been ruled constitutional. That ruling will come later. That the staff is ensured medical and religious exemptions, and also that they are informed that they have the right to those things. I think that's very important with such a controversial issue such as now, and we do not want to force people with medical and religious exemptions to have to choose between practice their deeply held religion and their job and livelihood. That's a clear violation of the First Amendment of our Constitution, and thank you for taking the time to consider making sure that our county employees are informed and that they have the ability to practice their rights under this mandate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. President, that's it. Okay, that's all the public comment we have. So we'll move on to committee and board reports. The first committee to report is Courts and Public Safety, chaired by Ms. Kimball.
Courts and Public Safety Committee met on December 7th, 2020. Well, that's right. Was it December 7th? That long ago? Did we just have one? Is this a typo?
No.
It was December 7th? Okay. The Courts and Public Safety Committee met on December 7th, 2021. It was recommended, and I move CPS 22/01-01 to amend the fiscal year 2022 Coronavirus Public Safety Fund 2110. That's fund number from budget, increasing revenues and expenditures by $14,650 from $6,957 to $21,607. CPS 22/01-02 to award Kelly Austin to provide cognitive behavioral services in the jail and authorize the board chair to sign the contract for services with the option to renew for 2 subsequent years, depending on availability of grant funding and mutual agreement of both parties. CPS 22/01-03 to award Catholic Charities to provide cognitive behavioral services in the community and authorize the board chair to sign the contract for services with the option to renew for 2 subsequent years, depending on availability of grant funding and mutual agreement of both parties. CPS 22/01-04 to add a fully grant-funded hourly enforcement officer position at pay table grade NO-00270 for the pay rate of $22.84 through $28.75 per hour to the Circuit Court for Recovery Court. CPS 22/01-05 to approve the creation of a new hourly juvenile transition center administrative assistant position at pay table grade QU-00173 for $16.63 per hour to $20.78 per hour. And CPS 22/01-07 to postpone the proposed Muskegon County resolution to ensure all constitutional rights of inmates at the Muskegon County Jail until the investigative report is issued by the Michigan State Police.
Okay, we have a motion that's been supported. Is there any discussion on any of these items?
Mr. Chair, so I'm looking at the agenda from the Courts and Public Safety, and the date on that is January 11th.
That's what I
So-
thought. the wrong date.
It's not
So
December.
this says December 7th,
January. Even January.
but in the full board report, so the meeting minutes are wrong from when this, it says on here, December 7th, Courts and Public Safety met on December 7th, 2021. But it actually met on January 11th, 2022. What I'm saying is full board packet is wrong. It didn't, Courts and Public Safety didn't meet December 7th. It met on January 11th.
Is that, the question is that the date wrong or is
The date is wrong.
The date is
That's
wrong.
what I said when I was.
Right,
at
so
the-
all we have to do is change the date. Melinda, I think as chairman of that, you can make them as you.
The motions are correct.
Motions are correct. It's just
the wrong
date.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have our agenda packet from our Courts and Public Safety Committee meeting. It reflects January 11th, 2022, which is in fact the actual date that Courts and Public Safety met. Let the record show that the agenda and minutes are incorrect. It was January 11th, not December 7th.
Okay, so.
So just amend the agenda to reflect January 11th, 2022.
So amended.
Well,
we've got a motion.
We have a different motion that's on the table. So
sorry, there was a motion made and there was support, as I understand it.
Right, there is.
So they can be a friendly amendment.
Yes.
It's simply a typographical error.
Is Commissioner Nash? Okay.
Okay, so we're amending the motion to accept all of these, all of these items.
No, it's just the date. And then, so the date's been changed to January 11th, 2022 as part of the motion. And then you will vote on these items on the motion,
And Charles just has to accept that friendly amendment,
which he did.
which he did.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so the motion has been amended to change the date. Is there any other discussion on that? Thank you, Mr. Waring. I think that Mrs. Pego.
She knew that.
Spotted that. Okay, we'll do a roll call on that.
Commissioner Brown
Yes.
on all? Well, I'm sorry. This is with the friendly amendment 1 through
Oh,
7.
I didn't know we were voting on that.
Yeah.
What are we voting on?
The amendment first.
No.
No.
It was a friendly amendment. It's just.
Oh, okay, so we vote on the whole thing, the amendment and the,
Is that, are we correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. We made a friendly amendment, which was accepted both by the motion maker as well as the supporter to change the date to January 11th, 2022. That's the only thing that's been revised, the date. Now you can vote on the motion, which will approve those items, well, approve or deny those items.
Thank you. So yes, on items 01 through 07.
So yes and no.
So just so everybody's got this correct, so they're gonna vote on the date change and then on
no, everything together.
On everything together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Brown, yes on?
On all.
Thank you. Commissioner Steer,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Heavy Right,
Yes on all.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes on 1 through 6, no, or 1 through 5, no on number 7.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Pago,
No on 1, yes on 2, 3, 4, and 5, and no on 7.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on all.
Chair Skolnick.
Yes, on all.
So 8 yes, 1 no on 1, 9 yes on 2, 9 yes on 3, 9 yes on 4, 9 yes on 5, 7 yes, 2 no on 7.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next,
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
thank you, Mr. Tego. The next committee report is community development and strategic planning by Mr. Byrne, Chair Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Community Development Strategic Planning Committee met on January 13th, 2022, and it is recommended and I move CDSP 22/01-01, CDSP 22/01-03, CDSP 22/01-04, CDSP 22/01-05, and CDSP 22/01-06.
Support. Okay, we have motion, motions have been made and supported. Are there any comments, discussions, questions on any of these? If not, roll call on that. Please.
Commissioner Steer,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Heavy Right,
Yes on all.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes or no?
Commissioner Pago,
Yes on 1, 3, 4, 5, no on 6.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes on all.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes, on all.
9 yes on 1, 2, nope, I'm sorry, 9 yes on 1, 9 yes on 3, 9 yes on 4, 9 yes on 5, 8 yes, 1 no on 6.
Thank you. The next,
Mr. Chair, that concludes my.
thank you, Mr.
I was
Brown.
waiting to say that.
Oh my gosh. It was, the next item is the report of the Transportation Committee, and we are again, the chairman is Mr. Byrne.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the Transportation Committee met on January 13th, 2022. As recommended, I move TR 22/01-01, TR 22/01-02, TR 22/01-03, TR 22/01-04, TR 22/01-05, and TR 22/01-06.
Okay.
Support.
We have, Mr. Brown made the motion, Mrs. Newsby supported them. Are there any questions or any comments, corrections, anything on any of these? If not, one more roll call, please.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes on all?
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes on all?
Commissioner Laring,
No on number 5, yes on the rest.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Pago,
No on 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry. Yes on 1, 2, 3, and 4. No on 5. Yes on 6.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes on 1, 2, 3, 4, no on 5, yes on 6.
and Chair Skolnick.
Yes on all.
Wait, 9 yes on 1, 9 yes on 2, 3, 4, 6 yes, 3 no on 5, 9 yes on 6. Is that correct?
Yep.
Commissioner Wilson.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Wilkins. So sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. So sorry. All the numbers.
Okay. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The final committee report is the Ways and Means Committee. The chair of that committee is Commissioner Seer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Ways and Means Committee met on January 11th, 2022. It was recommended and I move on items WM 22/01-01-02-03 and -04.
Support.
Okay,
Support on that. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on any of these items?
because I was just asking, I'll support it if nobody, if there's support. I support. All right, are there any comments or corrections, questions on any of these? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Nash.
Yeah, I just wanted to, number 3, is that the one with the courts? The juvenile transition center?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is, I'm wondering if we can ask administrative staff, is there other ways we could use these funds to help support the youth indirectly?
Sandra Gaynor, hi, the Circuit Court Administrator. As I mentioned when we talked last Tuesday, we have a lot of extra programming that we've added with Raise the Age, but it's child care fund eligible, so it's been added in the budget already, but it's 100% covered by the child care fund.
I understand that, but my question is like, couldn't we spend these dollars in different ways? Say, new beds, pillows, more activity, something indirectly that can help better the situation that they have while they're in that situation.
That stuff is still child care fund eligible, so it's not necessary for the grant. But I did think of one thing that's also in this grant right here that I forgot to mention last Tuesday that I think you would be interested in, and that's our behavior room for the JTC. As we know, a lot of the youth at our juvenile transition center have high mental health needs. So we are creating a behavioral management room that's a padded room so that when there is youth that's having suicidal ideations or major mental health issues, that we have a safe place for them.
And so this money is being spent on that?
Correct.
In what way?
To pay for the actual padding for the room, for some licensed company to come in and put that padding into that room for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, roll call, please.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Laring,
No on number 4, yes on the list.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes, I know.
Commissioner Pago,
No on number 1, yes on number 2, yes on number 3, and a yes on number 4.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes, on all.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes on all.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes, on all.
8 yes, 1 no on 1, 9 yes on 2, 9 yes on Chair Skolnick. I'm sorry.
You don't like me?
I'm sorry.
Yes, on all.
Okay, the numbers still stand. And 8 yes, 1 no on 4. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Excellent report.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Thank you. All right, that completes the committee reports. The next items are the chairman's report and committee liaison reports. The first item is I had this put on the agenda because over the last year, I've had some people talk to me about invocations before the before the board meeting. And I have some questions about it. Some county commissions don't do anything. I mean, there are no invocations. In our board rules, those are our choices. And I think that if we're going to do invocations, it should include as many different parts of the community as possible, different religions, and not having like just one church do it every week. Or we could do meditation, which involves so many seconds of silence, and you can do it, pray, do what you want. So I'd like to just open that up for discussion.
Shouldn't this come in a committee and not full board?
What committee?
This isn't committee, this is full board.
Yeah, this is about the board.
We talked about it. It seemed like this was the right place to do it. I mean, it isn't really a particular committee. It isn't something the committee controls. I mean, I'm open, Marcia.
Yeah, I would agree that our schedule at one point was pretty dominated by one minister. The schedule was pretty dominated by one minister, and so I mean, I'd like to see more variety. It's not easy to get. So, you know, a moment of silence, I think, if everybody's okay with that, I think would be appropriate.
Okay, yes, Mr. Sir.
At least when we had one minister, he was committed to it, and he was here. So,
Yep.
Mr. Nash.
I was just going to say I personally prefer the invocation, but we just need more effort into making sure that we get a variety of ministers.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Yes, well, I would like to see all of us become involved, because for a minute there, I thought I was a preacher, so.
You did such a good job, Steve. You were always appropriate.
Yes, so I think, you know, we could still do it, but make it involve all of us if we want to, you know, have some fun. Because it's kind of difficult.
Mr. Steele.
I think there's enough individuals here that would be willing to pray.
So
Maybe we don't need to
could
even
we
bring
just,
in somebody from
like,
outside.
rotate among ourselves and do that, and then you could do what you think is appropriate?
I think that's all right.
Oh, no, but there's just,
Well, I think that's a good idea, Bob. If you want, you know, if you were uncomfortable praying or didn't want to or couldn't be here, it's up to you to get somebody to be here. A minister or something. Is that what you're saying?
That sounds like a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Well, I have an idea on that. I mean, if we wanted to have a variety, we could assign each commissioner particular meetings that they would invite someone. That way they can invite who they want, or we'll get different. variety of
do it
people.
themselves.
But
You did
it
that
would be
last-
usually-
that's the way it was done at the state. Is either you could do it or you could get a minister from the community.
I like having ministers come from outside.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, didn't last year you had rotated commissioners? You sent out last year for 2021. I got an
We asked-
email.
We asked volunteers.
Can I finish? Right. I got an email asking if I was interested, and I'm assuming it went out to all the commissioners for those that were interested, if they wanted to do invocation, and I signed up, and I think Kim did, and maybe Mr. Larry, Mrs. Wilkins. So a few of us said yes, that we would. And then when we didn't do it, there was community ministers and pastors that came in and did it. Was there a lack in that? Is there like not?
There was not a lot of interest.
I mean, was it just because of COVID that the correspondences weren't happening? Like, I don't know how the arrangement happens, but we have enough of us that would fill those gaps.
I think what I'm hearing here is that we'll divide this up and each of us will just rotate and everybody will get a board meeting to either find somebody to do it or you can do it yourself. And could the invocations be, because to get a pastor here for a minute or two, you know, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon isn't always convenient for them either. I wonder, could they do that by Zoom or is that not a good idea?
Since we have an open meeting in public, they should be here. And
Yeah,
like Commissioner Sears said, you've had people that are committed to coming. It's just, I'm wondering, have they been corresponded and invited? That's my question. So.
Okay.
Now,
So
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What about, I mean, some of the staff that we have here, we have some really dedicated staff that might be interested in something like that if we gave them an opportunity.
We've got 9 commissioners. There's only 12 months in the year. We have 12 full boards and some occasional extras.
Bob already took January.
What's that?
Yes.
Bob already took January.
That's right, yeah.
That's right, I'm just saying, we have 9 commissioners. So you have 9
that was good
commissioners.
practice. So I think count. Yeah. You know, yes, Mr. Warren.
So the question at hand is invocation or meditation.
It's more than that, or the process.
Well, that was on the agenda, but I would concur with Commissioner Nash on this issue, and invocation is important. Our founding fathers during the Declaration, after the Declaration of Independence, before the Constitution was signed, they had actually quit meeting and were at odds with each other. Benjamin Franklin asked that they would start prayer again, and they started with prayer, and because the invocations and the committeemen that decided the Declaration of Independence started to pray together, and they started to come together, and they all signed the Declaration of Independence a few months later. So I think invocation is historical. Boards have traditionally done this for 150, 200 years. I think it's important that we follow tradition and that we beseech the Almighty God before each meeting. I think it's important, not necessarily in committee meetings because it's not binding, but when we go to full board, I think we need to seek the throne of God for these decisions that we're making. I think it's very important.
Okay. Marsha.
Yeah, I like the idea of having us either do it or ask somebody, because then the responsibility is spread. Because when the memo went out, not many ministers wanted to do it, you know, for the reasons you gave.
Right.
And I asked a couple, you know, personally, and then they did it. So that does work. So if it's a one-on-one, I think it's more likely to work.
All right. So what I'll direct the staff to do is this was the first meeting, so there's 11 more meetings. So I will divide that up, and then the other months that are left, we'll just do a random drawing for those people, and everybody will get a month, and you'll be reminded about it. On the date and everything, and then you either find somebody to come to the meeting, or you can do it yourself. And then everybody gets a crack at it, whatever they want. Okay, so I don't need a motion or anything. We'll just do it. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is citizen appointments. There were some openings on various committees that needed to be filled, and the appointments are listed here, and you can see the names and why they were chosen. I think we try to advertise these as best we can, either on the website or on our Facebook page. But there's a lot of need for people to serve on various committees. I don't know exactly how many committees there are, but there's a lot. And it's important when people do it that they show up to the meetings and participate as best they can. I would need a motion to make these appointments. Why don't we
Mr.
get
Chair,
this
I'll
in
make a
place?
motion that we accept the citizens' appointments as presented.
Support. All right, so we have a motion to accept these appointments. You can see with like whether they're private sector slots or public.
That's good.
Public slots or board liaison. Are there any questions on any?
No,
of these?
thank you. Actually, as chairs of transportation and being on the airport development, I think that would help me and the committee.
Well, I didn't want you to be on that.
I know, well, thank you.
You just gotta vote no, Bob, that's all.
Okay, all right, we have a motion that's been supported. I don't think I need a roll call on this. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, all those appointments are made. Yes, Mr. Nate.
I just had a question. Is the Economic Development Committee active? Not.
Not the one that's in the board policy.
The city it is.
The liaison committee for the citizen appointments. That's what I'm speaking of. It's not on here, but it's one on the website or
It's not active.
it's just not active. Okay. We don't know why.
Well, I think the last time we did brought that group together is when we had to pass the one on the pizza place up in the White House.
Right.
So it's really active based on the request coming in.
Mark, I believe on the strategic plan, community development, we do have some members maybe that are involved in that. And now kind of we've been getting their feedback from stakeholders in the community. So.
I mean, what Commissioner Brown has done is created a different committee in the community, which is separate than the committee that shows up on our page.
And just a little overlap that we brought in.
We coordinate with the city.
No, not with the city, but well, they are involved in the city. Some of the stakeholders, some of the members that we've gotten feedback from. Yes.
I think what Commissioner Nash, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I think what Commissioner Nash was asking about was the Economic Development Corporation Committee, right? And Doug Brown, you sit on that according to our appointments.
Right. They don't meet.
They don't meet. So is it like dissolved or they just not meeting?
Well, we brought in some of those people, like from Jim Edmondson and some of the people from economic development, the strategic chamber, and we've been getting feedback from them under the umbrella, if you want to call it, the community development.
Oh, under our committee?
Our committee, yeah.
Instead
So
of.
we've been getting some, would you agree or not?
I wasn't. No. To me, there's two separate committees. The committee that Mr. Nash is referring to is the one that is appointed by our board and is required to meet once there's requests that come in dealing with the community or funding. That committee doesn't meet. The hybrid of that, Mr. Brown created, does have an overlap, but it's a coincidental. I mean, it's two separate groups.
So
the Economic Development Committee that you're thinking of, like, for example, there was a new, I think it was Christian nursing home that wanted to do some kind of special funding financing that required the county's permission, approval to do. We met for that, but they don't meet regularly unless there's a request for some kind of special funding or something the state is doing and they need our approval to go ahead and do it.
okay,
I
so
guess
they're not
my only
required.
concern is that why don't we just keep it as it is as an economic development and take the hybrid and put it into
Exactly.
official setting.
Yeah.
That way we're not going outside of what we're okay to do. Because I don't know anything about it. I'm not catching it, but it should be under our committee.
That was my question. Like, how does he have the authority to make a separate committee? Like,
It's not exactly a committee. It's just, it was actually the meetings I attended were Zoom.
Right.
And it's not anything formal. It's just people getting on and talking about different things that their agency is doing.
but he's a representative of the county. So how does, I mean,
It was under the under the community development, if we ask stakeholders in the community to get their feedback on some of the topics that's concern them that might be into the economic, and we could share that, who those folks are and stuff like that. But I was not aware, yeah, there's two different things. So.
There's the county's economic development activity really is through this GMED organization, Greater Muskegon Economic Development Agency, that has an actual formal director and everything, rather than us doing that all by ourselves. I don't know, Mark sits on that board.
Right, and it has community leaders. Actually, the majority of it is community leaders. There's only 2 municipal members to that board, but they meet on a monthly, quarterly basis.
So they do meet quarterly.
But it's not the committee that you're referencing.
Not
to
this one
you're saying.
that Commissioner Nash was referring to.
Right.
And
So can I,
yes, go ahead.
can I ask Commissioner Nash a question? Right, are you following this and understanding and okay with this then? Because I think you have the same question.
No,
you do.
I get it. I guess I'm just wondering why we're going around what we already have. Even though it's transforming into different things, it still should be formal. Because we do have community people that might want to be involved in that, but we're not taking the right steps to go about getting those folks
Circumventing what
Mr. Brown chairs community development. Maybe he could come back to us with some kind of plan, because his committee is, what you're thinking of as a committee really was sort of an ad hoc, really isn't a committee. Were there regular members of that?
No, it was actually to get some feedback from local leaders and stakeholders in the community and kind of how to form the community development and strategic plan.
So are you bringing those reports back to the community development strategic planning meeting then, so that we know what's going
Some
on?
of them do get it involved in that, so.
I guess what, if I can read your mind a little bit, you'd like to formalize that to make it a more formal work?
Well, I think that's what Charles Nash was alluding to, and I'm in agreement with him on that.
This wasn't an attack on this.
No, absolutely not, but
I was just
we've
speaking
got-
of this because it was brought to my attention. And so I'm trying to figure out what was going on. So just the discussion was new to me. And that's why I'm like, whoa, we're kind of doing a lot of different things and none of us really knows what's going on.
Well, I mean, I applaud Commissioner Brown when he took over the community chair. He wanted to get to know the public, so he created he suggested these names. He threw a few more on there, and it really was nothing to take away from the committee that this board has members to. It's a totally separate. I wouldn't call it a committee. It's a group.
But what is different is, like, with these appointments, we know what those committees are. We know who's on them. He brings them before the board and we approve those. Right now, everything you're talking about, I have no clue about.
This I'm just saying for transparency. Yeah, we don't have minutes. We don't know.
And I'm not against it. I'm just saying we don't know anything about it. It hasn't been formally, dispelled to us. And
Commissioner, maybe we could leave it to Commissioner Brown. Would you come back with a plan for this?
Sure.
Just if people want to formalize it a little bit. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Brown, aren't you just getting some business leaders together, having lunch, just talking about?
Well, it's not a lot, but it's basically to get their feedback. I think I know everyone in this room, how they feel on certain issues, so it's good to get stakeholders and
No, I
what
agree.
some of the concerns are. And this is not a new concept, guys. No, so it was something that I wanted to get, I guess, thanks, Mark, but more of a hybrid type feedback from everybody in the community, what some of the things might happen. So I think if you look at the people that have come in and out, I think everybody would agree that it gives us a different perspective of what's going on and what might we want to focus on. So
good.
Okay. We're going to skip over 10 and I'm going to go to unfinished business. And I think I'm going to for this to Kimball House.
Were you referring it
I
to
don't know,
me?
you want to?
All right,
I'm
so
not sure what to do with this. So
I'll start this off. So
Postpone it.
Motion to postpone.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion. to
Till
postpone,
January of
but
2023.
We don't even know what we're postponing.
I just gave you the date, January 2023.
Second.
Are we on number 10?
11.
Okay. Can we speak to this?
Yes.
I'd like,
Yeah, Marcia.
yeah, I'd like to hear from a lawyer in terms of what he's proposing,
Well, there is
or
a.
what language he's come up with. Yeah.
There is a timing issue with respect to Medicare and Medicaid funding. So the county itself is not imposing a mandate in as much as it is, it wants to continue receiving funding for Medicare and Medicaid. Those related facilities must implement a vaccination mandate as a condition of employment. That's not coming from the county, that's coming from CMS and upheld by the Supreme Court. So at least with respect, the overall case is postured such that the injunctions that were previously issued have been set aside. And so that mandate now imposed by CMS as a condition of funding is allowed to move forward, such that if you do not require that vaccination, that you can be penalized on new admissions, payment for services, et cetera. The underlying case, though, has not been decided. That will be decided through the lower courts in the normal course of deciding those issues. So it is a timing issue because you have to, according to the rule, have some of this done by January 27th, I believe.
Right.
And so the Supreme Court found that that CMS does have the authority to implement this rule. That's what they've done. It's not unlike any other rule that requires vaccinations for healthcare workers that have long since been permitted. That's the Supreme Court's language. I'm not endorsing it. I don't want anybody to take that I agree with it. I'm just telling you what the Supreme Court found in their opinion. So you currently have a resolution that does not exempt healthcare workers. Now, there are all kinds of other exemptions within that rule that relate to religious exemptions and other medical exemptions that people may apply for. I can't tell you sitting here how many people we're talking about who haven't been vaccinated. Maybe it's already 100%. I just don't know. But what I do know is we have a conflict now between your existing resolution and the interim final rule that the Supreme Court has initially upheld as being lawful, which within that rule provides for the ability for people who cannot get vaccinated to seek exemptions under the rule in accordance with federal law. That interim rule also preempts any state law that otherwise conflicts with the interim final rule, so that we're looking at a rule, at least as it pertains to Medicare and Medicaid funding, that is applicable to your Health West facility.
I have a question.
Okay, Susan.
Mike, are you saying that if we left it the way it is, Health West can still require that? Because that's what it sounded like to me.
So
Or we just need to add the exemption to it.
correct. So it's a conflict with your existing resolution because there's no exemption for Health West. It applied to all the county's employees, of which Health West is a department or agency. It's not its own authority yet. And because of that, then I think you ought to amend your resolution to exempt Health West in accordance with the interim final rule. That interim final rule also gives those employees who may work at Health West who want to seek exemptions the ability to do so under the rule. Okay, so we're not eliminating the ability for people to seek those exemptions under the rule. It exists within the rule itself.
Which you're referring to medical and religious exemptions
Correct. Yeah.
of not having to receive the
Correct.
quote
Yeah.
unquote vaccine.
Yeah, and so I think that language is, to the extent that we'll talk about language to amend the resolution, I think that amendment is fairly easy where it would say, except to the extent required by federal law, rule, or order, specifically including the omnibus common or COVID-19 healthcare staff vaccination 86 Fed Regulation 61555, vaccine requirement for healthcare staff. The rule itself provides for that medical and religious exemptions that they can seek pursuant to federal law.
However, Congress has not enacted this into a law.
No, it's an interim final rule of the department.
What does that mean?
It means the department, that Congress gave the department the authority to promulgate rules. This is a rule that they promulgated, and the Supreme Court upheld that, saying that the department did have the authority and that this rule fits neatly within the authority that Congress has delegated to the department.
So are you saying it's not going to come before the Supreme Court again?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that right now, the Supreme Court has refused to uphold the injunctions that were issued by the lower courts and have allowed this interim final rule to move forward, which means that you have two choices. You either forego any of your Medicare, Medicaid funding, possibly, or get penalized for not complying with it, or you comply with the interim final rule and allow those people who may have medical or religious exemptions to seek those through the rule process.
Marcia.
Yeah, may I remind the board or the commissioners that 85% of the funding at Health West is Medicaid and Medicare. That was what was reported back in September when we looked at this. It would be irresponsible to ignore that fact that so many people, well, that would be what, 85% of the people in this community would not have access to mental health services and disability. I mean, it's just irresponsible to postpone this, totally irresponsible.
Mr. Nash.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a motion to postpone, which would essentially mean that Health West wouldn't be able to operate.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Warren.
So right now at Health West, I don't know, there's the vast majority of them have been vaccinated. This resolution doesn't stop anybody who wants the jab to get the jab. Those that don't want it have resisted incredible media pressure. They've resisted employment pressures coming from within Health West. They don't want it. I've heard from a number of them. We keep talking about how desperate we are for employees. The Health West is currently trying to get out of a memorandum of understanding because they're short-staffed and they can't even fulfill their obligations. And everybody who wanted it has got it. Those that don't want it don't want to have it. We continually talk about how we're trying to look out for the employees of the board or employees of the county. There's only a few of them. If we're not going to defend these few, the rights of a few, I just find this ridiculous that we're having this conversation. Our resolution isn't stopping Health West or the employees at Health West from doing their job, from continuing to provide the services. And yet we may lose some of these employees if we force this vaccination. The couple of them that I've talked to that have emailed me, they're pretty adamant. They're not going to get it if you force it. You're going to lose some of these people. Secondly, our resolution isn't stopping any funding. It's just saying that we're not going to mandate vaccines. If the federal government wants to try to force through financial reasons a mandate into a medical experiment, this board has no business telling their employees that they have to participate in a medical experiment. I even object to the idea that they have to have some religious objection to this. We have a doctrine called the Castle Doctrine. You have the right to stop the penetration of somebody coming into your home. You have the right to defend your home against
an intruder, that you've not welcomed in. Well, my body is is God's temple. And if I can't stop a foreign invasion or something that I don't want into my body, the castle doctrine exists for you to be able to defend your home. But it's the occupants in your home you're trying to defend, not necessarily the stuff. And if I can't even defend my own body, this is my castle, whether it's at home or at work, I want to defend what's coming into my body. This resolution says you have a choice to take this shot or not. There's nothing stopping the employees. The vast majority of them have asked for the jab. If they don't want it, who are we to force them into it over money, being held over the barrel over money? If the federal, it's not us that's going to stop Medicaid and Medicare dollars flowing the county. We're being forced into something that by the federal government, and it's our job to stand up for these few employees that are asking us to stand up for them and give them the right to not have their bodies raped by a vaccine that they don't want. And I would suggest that anybody that votes to violate the personal rights of these individuals is a tyrant. And we're going to be voting as tyrants to suspend the rights of these individual employees. And anybody who votes to suspend this resolution, I'm just going to call you a tyrant if you do vote for that.
Yes. I don't know how this will go. What if this thing goes through and the individuals who did not want to get vaxxed got vaxxed because they had to keep their jobs or whatever? If there was adverse effects and we had a death, for instance, would we be liable? For that?
No, I don't.
It's the federal government.
So there's a couple things, right? And so with respect to the resolution itself, there's a conflict, and I'll tell you why there's a conflict. The resolution, and it is the third paragraph after therefore let it be resolved. That paragraph says, Muskegon County shall not require of or mandate to any employee, prospective employee, or contractor any form of vaccine or similar medical treatment, verification, or COVID-19 test verification as a general condition of employment, and will not encourage employers located within Muskegon County to establish such mandates that so hinder medical autonomy.
That's not the one I have.
I don't have.
It's close. You said COVID, and there's no COVID in my line.
Where? Can you say exactly what paragraph?
Yeah, he did. He
can't
said
find
COVID.
it.
Muskegon County shall not. Oh,
That's the paragraph. It's close.
Where is it?
They weren't the same.
I still don't.
That's the only one in that.
That's the second.
Three.
The second.
Yeah, so if
Question any person's claim or parent's claim on behalf.
No, the next one.
yeah, it doesn't, you're right, it may have been an earlier version that I'm reading from. Notwithstanding that, you still have the same problem. Shall not require of or mandate to any employee, prospective employer, contractor, any form of vaccine or similar medical treatment verification, medical test verification as a general condition of employment, will not encourage employers located within Muskegon County to establish such mandates that so hinder medical autonomy. So that's a direct conflict now with the rule, which requires you to have those folks vaccinated as a general condition of employment. And, you know, I suppose you can look at this one of several ways. The one that I look at it is, you're not forcing people to do anything, but they do have a choice to make. And that is either they're going to remain as healthcare workers under these rules, or they're not. We didn't invent these rules. I didn't write it. The department wrote it. You didn't write it. The Supreme Court upheld it. And it is the way it is. The same way, I suppose, that hospitals require multiple vaccines for healthcare workers every single year. It is no different than that. That's what the Supreme Court said. We can all disagree with it if we want. The fact remains, though, that if you have two choices now, we either comply with the rule or we risk Medicare and Medicaid funding. That is the choice for the county, and you're free to make that choice. But there are ramifications. I just want you to be aware of it, or I should say, there may be ramifications. I'm not sure how enforcement's going to go on this, but nonetheless, those employees who don't want to get it have every right to reject it and say, I'm not going to get it. They risk their employment, not by me, but by the rule, by CMS.
I do have another question if I could, Bob.
Susie, I'm sorry.
Yes. If we kept this, could Community Mental Health or Health West, could they require it on their own?
Well, the problem with that, yes, they could if they were an authority, but they are not an authority. They are an agency of the county. Those are county employees.
Marcia.
Yeah, a number of audience members and commissioners have referred to the COVID vaccine as experimental. We've been using that vaccine since January of 2020, 2 years. It is not experimental. It's been used all over the world. They've kept records of the use. It has reduced the seriousness of people getting COVID. I did get COVID, but it was just minor cold symptoms. So, and I believe that it was because of the
So it didn't
vaccine.
work.
Excuse me, was interrupting. It was because of the vaccine that I did not get a worse case. It was very mild. And we're ignoring the fact that our hospital had to have Air Force people sent in, an Air Force medical team sent in to help with the staffing of the hospital.
Everybody's
We
quitting,
also,
so they don't wanna
excuse
get
me,
jabbed.
and we had to erect a tent for the ER. We are in a terrible state with our hospitals, and it's not expected to get better in the next few weeks. It's expected to get worse. So the fact, I mean, every paragraph of this resolution ties our hands from dealing with this very real, very dangerous situation with our hospitals and with the people of our county. And I think at the very least, we approve this amendment. I would like to see the whole thing thrown out because there's not much in here I agree with.
Okay.
Number one,
Were you called
the
on?
armed force, yes, he did. He addressed me.
All right, sorry.
Is that okay? You can interrupt me, I don't care. Number one, the armed forces have been brought in because people are quitting their jobs. That's why there's a lack of employees in the hospitals. Number
They're
two,
getting sick.
Number two, our own public health director has stated on record numerous times that is an emergency use authorized only. It is not FDA approved.
So Commissioner Hovey Wright expressed a lot of facts, or what she believed to be facts, but the vaccine wasn't available in January 2020. We've really only had it for a year now.
2021.
In 2021. So take that year down,
Okay.
2 years
You're
to
right.
1 year. And with the vast number of VAERS reports, which is incredibly difficult to report on, as busy as our doctors and staff are, it takes over a half hour to file a VAERS report. And it's incredibly cumbersome on staff to fill that out, which leads to incredible low numbers. The VAERS report is very low, and the amount of vaccine injuries that have been reported is just the tip of the iceberg. This is dangerous. This vaccine, the gentleman was talking about what he was talking about. I know a number of people that have been vaccinated and have come down with neuropathy in their feet. They've got neuropathy in their hands. My daughter is a medical expert, and she treats people that have numbers of patients that have had neuropathy in their feet after they've been vaccinated. This is a dangerous experimental drug that has never been tried on humans. This is an mRNA. You're looking at me strange, but an mRNA vaccination has never passed a human human test. We are the guinea pig. This society, this is the world's largest medical experiment on all of society, and you're messing with your RNA in your own bodies taking this. And I actually, Mr. Homer, you mentioned several times, possibly, I'm not sure how it'll be enforced, maybe. I say the resolution stands and let them come after us. We keep sending them our bills. And when the federal government says, nope, we're not paying them, then we might have an issue. But this is going to be resolved. This is going to go on in courts for years from now. And for us to shy away from the potential that maybe we're not going to get our Medicaid money, that's the federal government's choice.
Sure.
That's the federal government's choice. Our choice is to protect the employees. We continually talk about protecting the employees at this board and how we need to take care of them. Well, we need to take care of them and give them a choice. And if Medicaid doesn't send their money in a month from now, then we talk about this. But right now, the federal government may decide that we don't need community mental health, but we as a board need to protect our employees that don't want this shot. That's our right to protect their constitutional rights.
So how many employees are we talking about?
Wait just a minute. Who hasn't spoken? Charles?
The way I look at this, if we can take our personal views and egos and put them to the side, Health West has probably about 80 to 90% of their employees vaccinated already. Those that have not been vaccinated, they already know about this stuff. They already know that this is going to be coming down, and I'm sure they're making arrangements to deal with it one way or the other. This is not us saying you're mandated to get this shot. Everybody still has their freedom. I can go somewhere else and work. I don't have to get a shot here. We all have the choice. I had the choice. I chose to get mine. I didn't have to, but I did. We all have that choice. But right now, we need some common sense, because if we don't support taking this resolution and amend it or rescind it, we can just kiss mental health goodbye. And we have a responsibility to this community. And there's a lot of people in here in this community that need their mental health services. And for us to sit here and play political ping pong with that and act like it's no big deal, we'll see the fallout. So all I'm saying is, let's use our common sense. Let's stop talking all this political stuff. None of us are scientific experts. We don't know nothing about nothing when it comes to this vaccine. So there is no experts up here. But I'll tell you who I do listen to. I listen to people in that field. I listen to people that actually working in that field, that's actually doing research in that field. And that's where I get my information from. I don't look on the internet. I don't get with my political buddies and try to figure all this stuff out. I listen to those folks that are actually doing the work. And this is not an experiment. This is not a fake. The trials before it even got its emergency approval was on humans. So I don't know why we keep saying this stuff like it's never been used. They had to use it on humans to do that.
When are those
And there's a
trials complete?
select amount of those. Please don't interrupt me. I don't interrupt you. And all I'm saying is, let's stop trying to be scientists and let's just make some common sense decisions that's important for this community. And we need to make sure that we have this mental health support for people in this. Do you know what the real problem is right now? Because of this COVID thing going on, mental health is going out the roof.
Yeah.
And we're talking about destroying it. So good luck with that when your election comes up.
All right, Mrs. Penn.
Does anybody know when those trials are complete? They're
I have
not.
to look it up.
They're not yet, right? It's years out. So, yeah. Anyway, so who is going to actually be the people who's going to terminate these Health West employees if they're not compliant? Who actually does that?
Well, I suspect that would be Health West. They hire and fire their own employees, as far as I know.
I have a question on that too.
Yes. Mrs. Hughes.
So they would actually have the opportunity to say, you get the shot or you lose your job.
I would think so. I mean, I haven't checked with Health West on what their policy will be in that regard.
Well, they can't because the Supreme Court even offers those exemptions. So those still get passed down to them under their rights of having the religious or the medical exemption.
Yeah, that's what I said, that they have the
They
opportunity.
have that anyway. The resolution doesn't take that away from them.
No, I didn't say the resolution took it away. In fact, the amendment that at least that we've drafted would insert that language, not of the rule, but reference to the rule within there so that they could apply for those medical and religious exemptions.
They can do it without that
under the
being in there.
rule. So, yeah, but there's still a conflict between this resolution and what it says versus what the interim final rule is that was upheld by the court. And again, I'm not offering an opinion. None of us here are going to solve the debate over whether the vaccine's right or wrong. So let's not go down that road. I mean, we've been talking about this for
How did
years
this end up on our agenda? If you're not off.
Because of the
court's decision.
Well, who initiated in this room at this round
We
table,
did.
initiated to put this back on the agenda?
I did, because if we don't do anything, we
Then the
stand-
people can still ask for their religious and medical exemptions.
we're risking the funding for tens of thousands of people.
I have another question. Could Health West require their people to either get the shot or filing for an exemption, one or the other?
You already do.
They already do. So you're asking us to do what? If they
Well,
don't
That's what I'm
got
saying,
that
there's no
oh, in
point.
their policy.
They were before this was put on still on hold, right, by the courts.
Mhm.
So they have the process in place and they're ready to start it up again and they are allowing exemptions.
Do we have any idea how many people are vaccinated over there? Or how many people are not vaccinated? Or how many people have exemptions? I mean, is it 3 people?
But Julia Rupp is on if you want to ask.
I wouldn't believe anything she had to say.
It's irrelevant anyway, because if there was only one, their rights matter.
But what about the rights of people to get mental health services?
So they can fight it. Never mind.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a minute, let Mr. Hummers.
The reason why this is necessary is because let's suppose we didn't amend this and Health West had to make the decision, unfortunate as it may be, to fire somebody. This board would say, why are you doing that? We have this resolution that says we're not going to make it a general condition of employment. And that's exactly what they would be doing. So that's why we're here. Now, if this board is saying we don't need to amend this resolution and will allow Health West to go forward and implement the interim final rule without an amendment to it, that's fine, as long as it's on record, because I don't want to be defending it later saying, well, you didn't tell us that we had to amend this.
Okay, so basically what we need to do is.
Well, there's a motion on the floor
Right.
to postpone.
You know what, let's vote on that motion first before we do anything else. We need a roll call vote. The motion is to postpone everything until, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawrence,
January of 2023.
until next year. So a yes vote means you're postponing it and we will, well, you've heard what will happen. And another vote means we'll move forward with either
They can still get their
a
exemption.
resolution or doing whatever else is necessary to comply with the rules. So, roll call, on this, please.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
No.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
No.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Javi Wright,
No.
Commissioner Hughes,
No.
Chair Skolnick.
No.
4 yes, 5 no.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution as advised by our corporate counsel.
Yeah, let me just,
Support.
okay, just so we're aware of what the language would say. It would amend the second paragraph after the therefore paragraph. And so it would read as follows. Be it further resolved, Muskegon County shall not require of or mandate to any employee, prospective employee, or contractor any form of vaccine or similar medical treatment, verification, or medical test verification as a general condition of employment, except to the extent required by federal law, rule, or order, specifically including the omnibus COVID-19 healthcare staff vaccination 86 Fed Regulation 61555, 61556, November 5th, 2021, vaccine requirements for healthcare staff, and will not encourage employers located within Muskegon County to establish such mandates that so hinder medical autonomy.
Agree. Yep. Second again.
All right, so we have a motion to amend the resolution. Mr. Leonard.
So in essence, what we're saying, come to short-staffed at Health West, come to Health West, and your rights don't matter, your body doesn't matter. We want to cut your ears off. Hey, federal government said do it. The boss said do it. We're going to cut your ears off to come here as an employee, or whatever else that they might so dictate. I think it doesn't matter if there's one unvaccinated person over there or 350. One person matters. I don't want to bring up the race card, but I'm going to. What if they said, federal government said you can't employ a white person? Or what if you can't employ a black person? Or we're going to cut our funding. Seems like there's been similar legislation like that in our history. It doesn't matter how many are there. Our job is, actually, I would prefer that we, if the federal government decides to not pay us, we file a lawsuit against the federal government for this. I don't care how many are there, are unvaccinated or not. We're supposed to protect them from something they may not want. That's kind of my statement.
Marcia.
I think the more important group of people to protect are the recipients of services at Health West. And I'm not sure what that number is, but if we lose 85% of the funding, which is likely, that's thousands of people that won't receive needed mental health services. And a whole bunch more people will be let go, whole bunch more staff members. So the few that refuse to get vaccinated or don't want to would put everybody else at risk, all the rest of the employees and the people receiving the service.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Searle.
If they get vaccinated, they are still putting the people at risk. The vaccinated people can transmit the virus.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's not, that it doesn't stop it from transmitting to somebody else.
Commissioner Dunn.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to get into some of the details as Mr. O'Meara said as far as whether vaccines.
Pardon me?
So my question is if which way we go without the funding and to lose the 86% that's coming into Medicare, does this force Southwest finally to become an authority?
That's going to take
so they can get other funding and be away. Because we're only what, 3 counties in the state that have a Health West?
Correct. Commissioner Hughes is correct. I don't know.
That's not going to happen for until the end of the year.
And their goal is to be done by October.
I'm sorry.
October 1st is their goal.
Of 22?
21.
22. That was last year.
Sorry, 2022.
Right.
So that was their goal this year. But by postponing this and having them kind of find funding.
There is no other funding.
Oh, just Marshall.
Okay, there's no, okay, I'm sorry, I just needed a clarification.
No, I just want to say that the risk of losing that funding is so enormous. The consequences of that, I don't even want to be part of that.
Sold out.
I don't even know what would happen. Who's next? Anybody?
Thank you.
Charles?
Well, I just wanted to expand on that. You have to remember that Health West is not just mental health. It's a lot of
disability,
a lot of different types of ailments that go along that's qualified under mental health. Even substance abuse, which is a whole nother animal. You have to remember all of the contractors that we deal with. And we have all these different people staying or getting treatment. And we're talking about just cutting all that off. And not only is it an economical impact, but then also the healthcare. I mean, the damage that we could do by not following through, it is a tidal wave you don't even want to imagine. And again, we'd be foolish not to do this.
Mr. Chair, I do have a comment. You know, Health West tells us all the time, you don't have any control over us, we have our own board. They throw it in our face every time we want something from them, or every time we try and do something with them. You know, so really and truly, I don't know why we should do anything for them, let their own board handle it. However they want to. They tell us that all the time. We have our own board.
Are they the only behavioral health people in Muskegon County that can administer to people with those needs?
Yes.
Yes. So Hackley Community Care doesn't do any of that. Muskegon
They have to
County
get
Care
their
doesn't
money
do any
through
of
Health
that.
West. Everything that comes through this county has to go through Health West.
To the other providers, so Hackley Community Care's money comes through Health West.
I was just saying, there's mental health parts of that they contract through Health West. There's hundreds of agencies in this community that contract with Health West, but they have to get approved and get that funding through Health West.
Okay.
Marcia.
Yeah, just Susie, both Charles and I are on the board of Health West, and I don't remember ever saying to this board, I've been on that board for 3 years now, you know, that the county has no say.
Oh, I've heard that lots of times.
I haven't heard.
Okay. Who else? If this vote fails, I guess it fails, but the consequences of that are something that I don't really want to live with. I'm going to vote for this. And if this vote fails, really, this is
Then we sue the
worst thing
federal
I've seen
government.
happen in the 20 years I've been here. This will get resolved, but not by us voting against this.
Don't be fooled. Health West has no other resources. I mean, the amount of money that we're talking about is humongous, and it affects the most vulnerable people in this community. And if we risk that funding, there aren't other sources of that kind of money. There just aren't. I've been in this field my whole career, and you know, people that get private insurance, that's a whole different deal. But these are people that are on Medicaid and Medicare, and they don't get private.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Mr. Waring.
So the suggestion that we're going to lose this funding is just a suggestion.
No.
Wait, Marcia.
We don't know how this is going to play out. Mr. Homer doesn't know how this is actually going to play out. There's still many other court cases still proceeding. There's threats of tsunamis. There was just one the other day over a volcano. We've heard them over and over again. There's warnings all the time. We can see the writing on the wall, and if that happens, we can deal with it at that time. But we don't really know how this is going to be implemented. We have the suggestion from the federal government. We don't know what direction this is going to go. And I mean, so we're only talking a handful of employees, fire them, let them leave, whatever, their condition of employment. this is immediate. This decision that we're making is immediate over the idea that the federal government is just tomorrow going to cut off funding. We don't really know how this is going to play out, and there's going to be many court cases to be settled before we actually know. So,
Okay, Charles.
Just, we have to remember, this is something that's gonna impact the healthcare. I don't want us to keep talking about Health West. Health West is not making this decision. Health West is abiding by the rules that's been handed down. That's the same way we're trying to do. And we did take an oath to follow the Constitution, and the Supreme Court is part of that. And they have made a decision, and we have to abide by the law. And that's the other thing that I learned as coming as a commissioner on this board, that we have to abide by the law. Now, if you want to change that law, you're my guest too. I mean, people have fought to change laws all the time, but that don't happen overnight. So we can't change the law today, but we're supposed to abide by the law. We took that oath. So that's up to us. So think about the oath and think about the health care, not the money, because the money is to support the health care. So think about the health care that this entire community will lose and the impact that it will have. That's all I gotta say.
I have one more question,
Yes.
Mike, if I could. Mike, we got a thing in the mail from Michigan Association of Counties. And the top letter says, U.S. Supreme Court puts hold on vaccine mandate for large employers, allows mandate for health facilities to operate. It doesn't say mandate, it says allows.
Well, it allows the interim final rule to move forward with the or the implementation of required vaccine for healthcare workers. That's
So
what
this, that's not even moved forward yet?
No, it has, but the underlying case is still pending, right?
Okay,
So
because this was dated yesterday.
yeah, so what the Supreme Court did, so there were two states, I believe it was Louisiana and Missouri, and the district courts there issued injunctions enjoining CMS from implementing that rule with respect to healthcare workers.
25 states, it says.
The department appealed that, and the Supreme Court said that this rule fits within the authority granted to the department by Congress to allow this interim final rule to take immediate effect, mandating that healthcare workers get vaccinated or risk funding.
Okay.
Right? So on one hand, I don't necessarily agree that if you decide not to follow it, that you're violating the law, but you're putting at risk the funding potentially. How that gets enforced, I'm not sure yet how the department's going to handle enforcement of that.
Because it sounded to me like in this, it says the validity of the mandate will be determined in further proceedings in the lower court.
That's right. Yes, that's
So
that's
technically,
exactly right.
it doesn't really affect us until the Michigan court or the Muskegon court decides?
No, unfortunately not. So because one of the criteria for getting an injunction is showing substantial likelihood on the success on the merits. And so what the Supreme Court does then is look at that and determine whether or not the department is likely to succeed in that underlying case for purposes of that injunction. And the court decided that this rule fits within the department's authority to do. Now, there's still a question about other issues related to the case because the case is still pending in the lower court. And so ultimately that may make its way back up to the Supreme Court, but they've already decided that the department has the authority to implement this rule.
So it's the rest of the.
Yeah, whether or not it's interim or not doesn't matter. What the court said is that Congress delegated that authority to the department to do. I mean, their language in the opinion, if you read it, was pretty strong. And they said that the department, that this rule fits neatly within the statutory framework that Congress delegated to the department. I'm not necessarily telling you I agree with it necessarily, but the Supreme Court made its ruling and you have two choices. We either follow that or you potentially risk funding. That's the choice.
well, let's move ahead and we'll do a roll call on this. A yes vote means we revise the resolution to allow funding to continue for now. This isn't over completely yet. But we need to move forward with this to ensure that Health West continues to operate. And we don't end up being on the hook for the bills that we've been paid. So a yes vote means that we're adopting the change to the resolution, and no vote means you're not. So if we could have a roll call on this, please.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
No.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Steer,
No.
Commissioner Javi Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Vice Chair Hughes,
No.
Commissioner Laring,
No.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes.
5 yes, 4 no.
Okay.
I just saved it.
All right, next item. Mark, did you have anything?
No, I do not.
Next item is new business. Is there any new business to be brought before?
I'd like to advise on record, anyone fired at Health West for failure to vaccinate should immediately file a notice of claim with the County of Muskegon on the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority bond with a $1 million per incident coverage.
Was that a motion?
No, I just making it on the record advisement to.
Okay.
Where we at? New business?
We're moving on. Well, just new business.
Okay. Sorry.
Next is public comment, and I have one from Nancy. I'm sorry, it's
Steer.
Like
Steer.
steer the car.
Okay,
Steer the car.
I'm
There
not
you
doing it
go.
on purpose.
Thank you. I know you've been talking about health a lot, but as you know, the Omicron variant is ravaging the county. So I urge the county to protect the public health by organizing more free and fast COVID testing. And secondly, revamp the county health department website so it is much easier for visitors to quickly learn where to go for testing and how long it will take to get back the results. The state does have the money to fund free and fast COVID testing, but the county health department has to be willing to find locations and the staff to staff it. Lack of testing is one of the reasons for the recent expansion of cases in Muskegon County. In one day, within the last 2 weeks, there were 705 new cases reported. And you know that the hospital is overflowing. When I needed a COVID test just before the new year, it took me 5 hours of intense searching in order to find a way to get a PCR test and the results within 24 hours. Neither the person I called from the county health department or the health department website was significantly helpful. The only place I could find fast, rapid testing on a walk-in basis in the entire county was at Christ Temple. You can get results within an hour, but they are only open 3 days a week, and the place is overflowing with people seeking tests. This should be staffed at least 5 days a week with more supervision to enforce masks and social distancing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Steer. Yes, sir.
I didn't fill out a slip the second time I did
Just
earlier.
kind of the microphone and if you give us your name again and where you live in the county.
Tom Zemer from Whitehall. And the thing that I'd like to say in view of all this is, it hasn't been brought up, is the fact that the government, the power of the federal government is as it is because decisions like this keep getting made. Every time a county rolls over because of the threat of withholding money, it reinforces the federal government's tyranny over us. If a few more counties, if this one and a few more would start standing their ground, maybe we could make a difference. Maybe the federal government wouldn't control every thing, including what gets put in your body. This is disgusting. They're not going to take away all of the money immediately. If they take it all, there are still things that are going to be resolved in the courts. I still believe the whole thing is unconstitutional, just like all the other mandates have been ruled unconstitutional. Somebody in this country needs to take a stand, and it has made a difference in other parts of the country where some cities and counties and sheriffs have stood up for the rights of people.
Yeah, Jason Hall and Karen Palmer.
I'm sorry.
Jason Hall and Karen Palmer are on.
Okay. Jason Hall.
Jason Hall, Moreland Township, Muskegon County. I can't even believe what happened today. You sold out the rights of the people, even just a few. History is repeating itself. Doug Brown, I'm absolutely disappointed. Charles Nash, I'm very proud of you for standing up for them kids. This money, this exact example, the money's not being used for those kids. That's what it's there for. You did everything you could to try to implement that financing, go to actual sources versus just being blown. I'm proud of you for standing up for them kids. But as for this county, you just showed the county, the people, that you don't care about the rights of the few. God-given rights, not to be forced to have anything injected into their body that they didn't want. Anything. Explain that to your grandkids later on. I don't know how you're going to do it. As for the rest, Charles Nash, you made a good comment. It's not going to get fixed overnight. I must thank you for advising and advocating for the people to stand up and fight. Who are you advocating fight? Fight the federal government? Be very careful what you're asking for. There's a very silent majority out there that they are ready. But they don't believe, they can't even believe in their local government. How can they believe in their federal government? You guys have the responsibility to stand up against unconstitutional acts. It doesn't have to be ruled constitutional. Morals tell you, and yes, a state Supreme Court can overrule the Supreme Court. That ruling is possible, and it's going to happen. And then what's the county going to have to do? The property owners are going to have to pay out the damages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Karen Palmer.
I'm sorry.
Karen Palmer.
Karen Palmer. Okay, Karen Palmer, you're up. You have 2 minutes. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Great. Recently, with regards to that Supreme Court decision, one of the justices made a lot of statements which were totally inaccurate. She made some statements with regards to how many children were hospitalized and on ventilators for COVID. And everyone on both sides of this discussion knows that that's not true. She could lose her justice seat for that. Two of you just made great, I want to say lies. Maybe you're just sadly misinformed. You made some statements that this shot is not experimental. Well, you go to the CDC website and tell me that it's not an experiment. Zach and Melinda both spoke the truth about it. It's an experimental drug. It doesn't even qualify for the term vaccine. For you to sit there and call it such and then refer to it as not experimental, well, show me where the studies are where it was used on animals. They did some studies with animals, with monkeys, or with, no, it was ferrets. Ferrets on mRNA vaccines, as they call them. You know what happened to those animals? If you don't know, then you should have learned this about a year ago. Those animals all died in the study. They're using us as guinea pigs for this. It's an experimental drug. It's not a vaccine. And you just wanted to make those people choose between an experimental drug and their employment. Jason is right. I'm disgusted. I am more than disgusted. I understand that you care about the community and the people who need mental health services. I get that. But for you to make a decision based on nothing that's determined to happen the way you did is disgusting and unconscionable. You failed to protect our rights. You violated your oaths.
Thank you. Kristen? That's it? Okay. Oh, wait a minute, I have one more. Yeah, I'm sorry. Daryl Newell?
Daryl Newell, I'm from Fruitport Township. And I did work in the medical area. I wasn't a doctor. I fixed hospitals all over this area. I spent a lot of years doing it. And when the mask mandate, more mandate, government overreach is what it's called. When that happened, I was pretty much shoved out of the hospitals. Then the vaccine come, and that was my final incident. Not allowed in the hospital because I don't feel that I should take what is an experimental drug. You've got it wrong, young lady. And I'm going to remember these people who voted to take away these people's jobs. And I'm going to speak out at every stand-up Michigan thing I go to, every protest. I'm going to mention your names, every one of them that voted for this. I'm going to mention it to the 500 people that I'm working with right now on a big project. And I'm going to continue to mention your names. And hopefully we can vote you out of your positions for not standing up for the people, whether it's one person, two people, or 100 people. It doesn't matter. You were elected in this city to stand up and protect these people. You've done a terrible job of that today. You have shown me where you truly stand in the care for people, because you've got no evidence or proof of any of this drug that you're saying. You don't know long-term effects. So now you should force somebody to take a drug because you vote against protecting their job. You already had that in your plan, that bill. So you vote to amend it now over money.
Sickening.
So that's all I've got for you. I won't forget every single person here. I'll make sure it's written down, and I will spend my lungs louder than I've ever spent them to talk about you people. I'm disgusted. That's all I've got for you.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Okay, is that it? Okay. Next item is final board comments.
Just have one, Mr. Chair. So just want to let everybody know, the public meeting regarding the Dunes Harbor Park project has been confirmed for Wednesday, February 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Lincoln Park Elementary School, 2951 Leon Street, Norton Shores, Michigan, corner of Lincoln Park Drive and Leon Street. This will be a public meeting regarding Dune Park.
6 o'clock, you said?
That is correct, between 6 and 8 on February 16th. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Being no final comments. Oh, Mr. Nash.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to inform some of those in the audience and maybe online. My daughter, who works in a lot of the research here at Duke University, just sent me the link here for covidtests.gov, which is where people can go to get their free at-home COVID tests. I know they've been trying to get them out to different people, and if anyone needs a vaccine test and they want to get tested, just go to covidtest.gov and you can order your test there. I know a lot of people have been wondering how to get them and how's the government going to distribute them, but there's one way. So if anybody wants to get one, that's where they can get.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. All right, we have a closed session. I need, we'll need a
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.2680E to consult with the attorney regarding trial settlement strategy. Enough?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, read the
in connection with a specific pending litigation in case number 2000004 420 MB, Muskegon County and Health West, an agency in Muskegon County versus State of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, a Michigan state agency, and its director, Robert Gordon, and it's his official capacity because an open meeting would have detrimental financial effect on the litigation or settlement position of the county.
Support. Okay, we have a motion that's been supported. Why need a roll call on this? Okay.
I have a comment if I may.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It was my impression that this was no longer pending, that it was settled.
No, that's not correct.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pago,
Yeah, yep.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Javi Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, we'll have a 5-minute break and we'll have. I'm sorry. motion. We have a motion to go back into open session by Mr. Nash, supported by Mrs. Wright. Marcia.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we.
We have a motion on the floor.
Oh, we have to vote on that, sorry.
All right, I don't know if we need a roll call, but I guess we don't, okay, voice vote. To go back into open session, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're back in open session. Marcia.
Yeah, I make a motion that we follow the advice of our attorney in this case.
I'll support it. So we have a motion to follow the advice of corporate counsel. Any more? If not, we'll do a roll call on that too, please.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey-Wright,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
No.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Chair Skolnick,
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
Okay. We're adjourned.